Everyone loves to claim the modern NBA is soft, right? We went from witnessing a bruised Michael Jordan fight through contact to seeing SGA doing whatever the hell this is, snapping his head back.
Think about the firepower that they have on that team. He's got a little size advantage here.
I mean, that is such a flop. That wasn't even the good angle.
I got a video on Mr. Head Snap. Check it out if you haven't yet. And whether you agree with that or not, I think we can all agree that the modern NBA is softer. Now, for years, we've been told that this is just nostalgia talking, that us old heads are stuck in the past, that the modern game is more evolved, more skill, more spacing, more shooting, less wrestling in the paint. And to be fair, today's players are insanely skilled, but they were also skilled in the 90s. I don't see how people equate the skill level with softness. Dominique Wilkins and Clyde Drexler were skilled in a tough era, so miss me with that bullshit. But here's the real question. Did the game naturally evolve into this, or was it pushed there? Because when you actually dig into the numbers, defensive ratings, scoring averages, foul calls, technical fouls, rule changes, you start to see a pattern, and it's not random. It's a mathematically verifiable reality, and it was engineered by the league office. They systematically legislated defense out of the game. Legislated? I know. It sounds conspiratorial. Like, you really think the NBA just decided to ban defense? Please take a moment to like and subscribe and enjoy the rest of the video. Thanks. Over the past few decades, the league systematically stripped away physical defense. Hand checking, gone. Freedom of movement rules, enforced aggressively. Touch fouls, standard. Offensive numbers, exploding. This wasn't accidental, it was policy. As defense became more restricted, scoring skyrocketed. Efficiency jumped. Big offensive nights became normal. And at the same time, emotional intensity shifted. What used to be hard playoff battles started turning into whistle-driven chess matches. That's why so many fans feel like something's missing. This soft era isn't a myth, it's measurable. If you want to understand why scoring in today's NBA looks like a video game, you have to go back to the moment that completely freaked the league out. Late 90s, early 2000s. What a lot of fans now call the dead ball era. This was grinded out basketball. Bodies banging in the paint, defenders glued to their man because of illegal defense rules. You couldn't just float around in a zone, but you could hand check, bump cutters, and turn every drive into a wrestling match. Offenses slowed to a crawl. Every possession felt like work. Then came the breaking point. Detroit Pistons.
Another team fails to score 70 against the Pistons, an NBA record.
This team wasn't flashy. They weren't built around a scoring machine. They were built to suffocate them. Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace. 5 guys moving on a string defensively. They pressured the perimeter, hand-checked legally, bodied up in the post, and rotated like their lives depended on it. And in the 2004 finals, they ran into what was supposed to be a super team, Los Angeles Lakers.
Can the Pistons win one game? If they won one game, it would be a good series.
The Pistons, who often this season couldn't score 70 points.
No, truthfully, I don't think they're going to beat them because they have too many offensive people.
This Lakers squad had Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. On paper, it didn't even look fair, but here's what actually happened. Game 1, Lakers score 75 points. Game 3, Lakers score 68 points. Kobe, 11 points. Series over in 5, 75-68. In today's NBA, that doesn't even sound real. The Pistons didn't just beat the Lakers, they dragged them into the mud and held them there. Every cut was bumped. Every post entry was fought. Every possession felt like it took 30 seconds of physical punishment just to get a shot up. Basketball purists loved it. The league office, not so much. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The NBA isn't just a sport, it's entertainment. It's television, it's ratings. An 80 to 75 finals game might be beautiful to a defensive junkie, but casual fans, they tune in for dunks, threes, and superstar takeovers. Even Rasheed Wallace later admitted it straight up. They were bad for business. They weren't letting teams get dunks. They weren't giving up open threes. They were cutting all all of it off, and that was the problem. Because right after that season, the league started changing things. Hand-checking enforcement tightened. Freedom of movement became a priority. Defensive physicality slowly got legislated out of the game. It wasn't random, it was a reaction. The 2004 Pistons didn't just win a championship, they triggered a rule book shift. And from that point forward, the NBA made sure a team could never win like that again. The shift from old school body-to-body basketball to today's wide-open scoring show didn't just happen. It wasn't some natural evolution where players suddenly woke up more skilled and defenses just couldn't keep up. This was intentional. If you go from the bruising battles of the late 90s to the up and down, space and pace game of the 2020s, the difference feels massive. Back then, every drive to the rim felt like stepping into traffic. Perimeter defenders could guide you with their hands. Bigs could punish you inside. Possessions were physical, messy, exhausting. Now, it often looks like a track meet, spread floor, quick actions, minimal contact, a whistle if you breathe too hard. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because the league made it happen. There were two major levers pulled from the top down. First, hand checking. For years, defenders were allowed to use a forearm or hand to control ball handlers on the perimeter. It wasn't pretty, but it made life difficult. You had to fight just to get into your offense. Once that was stripped away and strictly enforced, perimeter scoring exploded.
In the era that, these guys have played in, the Shaqs and the Charles and even myself.
We call it the man era.
Okay, there's no way that you can bring the basketball up and there's no one touching
without being pressured.
or pressured. So as the play goes on, there's no one that ever gets touched. There's any pressure. See, if he didn't like that shot, he doesn't. LeBron James is the best player in the world. Freeze it. There's no defensive pressure or touching because of the new rules in the current state.
Guards suddenly had freedom to turn corners without being steered or bumped off their path. Isolation became cleaner. Pick and roll became deadlier. Driving lanes opened up overnight. Second, freedom of movement. This became the league's guiding principle. Off-ball contact called tighter. Bumps on cutters whistled. Any disruption that slowed down offensive flow penalized. The message was clear. Offense should flow. Defense should react. Put those two changes together and you don't just get a slightly different game, you get a completely different ecosystem. Defenders can't dictate terms the way they used to. Physical intimidation is basically gone from the perimeter, and scorers operate with more space than any era before them. So when people say the modern NBA feels less physical, less confrontational, more offense-driven, they're not imagining it. The league didn't gradually drift from gladiator combat to highlight factory. It flipped the switch. If you really want to see how effective the league's rule changes have been, don't start with highlights. Start with the numbers. Because over the last 8 years, offense hasn't just improved, it's exploded. We're watching stat lines that used to feel legendary become normal. 40-point games, teams casually dropping 130 like it's nothing, and that doesn't happen in a vacuum. When you take away the physical tools defenders used to rely on, scoring doesn't just rise a little, it skyrockets. There's a stat called defensive rating. It measures how many points a team allows per 100 possessions. It's basically the cleanest way to track how hard it is to score in a given era. And when you line up different decades, the shift is wild. Late 70s/early 80s, league average defensive rating, mid 90s. That means teams were giving up around 94 to 96 points per 100 possessions. Every bucket required work. You had to execute. You had to survive contact. Late 90s, dead ball era. League average defensive rating, around 106. Defense was still physical, but offenses were slowing down and grinding through possessions. 2022 to 2025, league average defensive rating, 114 to 115. Let that sink in. We're talking about nearly a 20-point swing per 100 possessions compared to the more physical eras. That's not minor. That's a structural shift in how easy it is to score. To give you perspective on how dominant defense used to be, David Robinson posted a defensive rating of 94.4 at his peak. That's suffocating. That's "you're not scoring tonight" type of shit. The average offensive rating today would have looked like an all-time record-breaking outlier in the 80s or 90s. We didn't just see better scorers emerge. We built a system that makes scoring easier. And once you understand that, a lot of those historic stat lines start to look a little different. There was a time when a 50-point game felt mythical. It meant something extraordinary had happened. It meant someone survived elite physical defense and still dominated. Between 2008 and 2014, the league averaged somewhere between 3 and 8 50-point games per season. In 2019, that number jumped to 22. In 2020, 27 different 50-point performances. Now think about this. From 1963 to 2022, almost 60 years, there were only 4 70-point games in NBA history. Between January 2023 and January 2024, 4 more in 1 year. When something historic starts happening every couple of weeks, it stops feeling historic. That's not nostalgia talking. Scarcity creates meaning. When numbers become routine, their weight changes. A 40-point game in 1995 meant fighting through hand checks, hard fouls, tight spacing, and physical punishment. A 40-point game today still requires insane skill. Don't get that twisted, but it doesn't demand the same level of physical resistance, and we feel that. We might not phrase it in terms of efficiency curves or expected points per possession, but we understand something has shifted. The box score has been inflated, and when stats inflate too quickly, milestones start to feel lighter, even if the talent level is higher than ever. In the 80s and 90s, most of the action happened in the paint. Drives to the rim meant collisions. Post play meant wrestling for position. If you attacked the basket, you were absorbing real contact. When guys like Michael Jordan or Dominique Wilkins stepped to the line, everyone understood why. They just survived a mid-air body check. The free throws felt earned. They were the cost of doing business in a physical game. Now, everything has flipped. Most of the action happens on the perimeter, and the contact that draws whistles is often microscopic. A shooter kicks his leg out to create contact. A guard snaps his head back. A ball handler hooks a defender's arm on a rip-through. Technically, it's a foul, but visually, it doesn't feel like someone fought through a war zone to get there. That disconnect is frustrating. It's not about the number of free throws. It's the aesthetic of how the foul was created. To their credit, the league tried to address this. In 2023 to 24, the NBA introduced in-game technical fouls specifically for flopping. On paper, it sounds good. If you exaggerate contact to trick officials, you get hit with a tech. Early in the season, referees called it. Then, they mostly stopped. A handful of players racked up multiple flopping techs, but as the year went on, enforcement basically faded away. The rule became more of a headline than a real deterrent. And when you introduce a crackdown, then quietly abandon it, that sends a message. This isn't a priority. To really understand how much has changed, you have to talk about the infamous Jordan rules. Back in 1988, the Detroit Pistons built an entire defensive system around beating up Michael Jordan. It was about wearing him down over 48 minutes. If a team tried to execute that exact strategy today, they'd foul out by warm-up. The entire toolbox that made something like the Jordan rules possible has been removed. Sports are compelling because of conflict. Offense is the hero, defense is the villain. The struggle between them is the story. When you tilt the rules heavily toward offense, you reduce that struggle. But in solving the problem of ugly, low-scoring rock fights, the league may have created a different issue. When everything is easier, greatness feels lighter. Fans aren't tuning out because they hate basketball. They're tuning out because they miss the struggle. Like, subscribe, share, and maybe even hype the video. Let me know in the comments if you agree that the modern NBA is soft as fuck. Thanks for watching.